Welcome. I think we're live. It's Tuesday, and this is another Food Life Live, the Times Union's conversation about food, drink, all sorts of things in the area relating to yummy things. I'm really thrilled to be talking to some wonderful panelists today. My name is Susie Davidson Powell. I'm the dining critic for the Albany Times Union. And this is the fourth in the series. So we've already talked about rosé, we've talked about the state of the restaurant industry, we've talked about plating your takeout, but today we're going to be talking about ice cream, but not just ice cream, boozy ice cream. And my two panelists that I'll be, hopefully their faces will appear in a minute, but I'm going to be talking with Kem Carl, who is the co-owner of the Dutch Udder in Troy, and also with Leila Kios, who is the owner of the Yard in downtown Albany, which is a hatchet throwing bar, but she also is the chief crafter of the Woozy Moo ice cream. So there they are. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining me today. And I have to say, I'm really thrilled that we have an all-women panel. I love to see, women business owners. Now, you two have completely different business models, and so we'll be getting to that in a minute. And even though this is very much a fun conversation about boozy ice cream, we'll also be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on your business and the necessary pivots you've made. Before we get into that, I wanted to remind people that you can ask questions at any time. We are live streaming on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook. So just send those questions in. I'll be able to see them and I'll try and plug them in as fits, or at the very least, we'll get to them by the end. And if it's specific to someone, just make a note of who you want to answer that question. Otherwise, we'll just all tackle it. And of course, this is happy hour, or at least we say it's happy hour. It is a little bit early. It's 4 o'clock. So each of us will have a drink, and I invite you at home. I think we had said in all of our promo materials that you might like to try mixing up a white cargo, which is what I have going on here, and I'll tell you. But first of all, let me ask Kem, what are you drinking? What have you mixed up with your boozy ice cream?
I chose a mojito from Royal Meadery mixed with my margarita sorbet. So, and it's an hour Zoom, so it's a very large can to get me through.
Delicious. That sounds great. And Leila, what do you have?
I have one of our, I don't know if you can see it, one of our little sundaes here. This one is called the Marie Kondo. It's the simplest sundae that you could have, just a scoop of ice cream, a little whip, and a big cherry on top. But I decided to spark some more joy with it by including a piece of the chocolate-covered bacon that we make here that has almond crumble on it. The flavor of the ice cream that I have is a flavor called Not So Vanilla. It is made with Long Trail Blackberry Wheat Beer and has a black raspberry swirl throughout.
That sounds delicious. And I have the white cargo, which basically the white cargo is equal parts vanilla, ice cream, and gin. Now, in the spirit of using one of your ice creams, I have the Dutch Udder vanilla ice cream, which actually was your award-winning ice cream. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I mixed that with, I tried it with a few different gins. I don't mean to suggest that I've been sitting around drinking gin all day. I sampled it last night, but I ended up going with one that was less floral, a little bit less juniper on the front. So this one is a Hendrick's gin with vanilla ice cream, equal parts. Now, I'm not going to tell you not to make a pint of this, but I only did 50 mils, which is about 1.7 ounces of ice cream and of the gin. And then the key is to apparently shake it up without ice, because you're not trying to dilute it. So the texture that it ends up really depends how well you shake it. Now, I did this one earlier, so you can see it's a little thin right now, but you shake it. Maybe dust it with a little bit of nutmeg, which I already did, but always add more. So cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
And anyone who's made a cocktail at home, cheers to you as well. Of course, I'm not actually saying that you have to be drinking alcohol at this time or any time. You can make anything, because really, in a lot of ways, we're just riffing on a soda float, right? So while you might indeed enjoy pouring Cynar over a lemon sorbet, instead you might put kombucha, or you might simply have a Coca-Cola with a scoop of ice cream. So whatever you feel like having is good with us. I should actually try it, right? Okay. So I'm going to go to Kem first of all. You have your co-owner with your husband, and you have the Dutch Udder in downtown Troy, right on River Street. People can find you. So first of all, I want to ask you, just because I'm slightly concerned about the temperature where we all are, if you would like to tell us a little bit about the flavor that flavors that you've chosen to share with us today, and then we'll talk about your background. I just don't want it to melt.
So I have here what we call our flight, ice cream flight. So, and we've been doing this since day one, again, because of our home brewing background. But now this year, more than ever, this is more important because we can't do samples. So this is a nice way to try 6 different ice creams. I have on this particular one, rum raisin, our wit, which is a beer-centric ice cream, but no beer in it. So it's all the ingredients you would find in a wit style beer.
Okay.
Orange peel, coriander, and wheat DME, dry malt extract. I've got cookies and Irish cream, Dutch chocolate, which has a Godiva liqueur, grasshopper, which is designed after the grasshopper drink. And our signature ice cream is our pink velvet cookie dough, which we make all the cookie doughs ourselves as well. So again,
Wonderful. And is that for one person? Someone will come up and just order your flight for one?
this is a judge-free zone, so yes, absolutely.
I feel like we're going to get the same kind of results from Layla. I don't think either of you are going, really scrimping on the portions. Okay, so Kem, just to give me a little bit of background, obviously, as far as COVID goes, you've been in the situation, you were shut down, you have reopened now, you have outdoor seating in your parking spot right out front. I don't have a photo to show, but if anyone goes to my Instagram, I took a photo of their parking spot, or it's on your Instagram too, the Dutch Udder. And so I know you've had a lot of headaches along the way, but at this point, you feel as if you're kind of ready, open for business?
I wouldn't necessarily say, yes, I'm ready. This is an entirely new business plan, process, everything. It's like starting from scratch. We have to relearn everything to make sure that we are not only compliant in our own way that we normally would be, but then the extra with the COVID. And it's not even that hard. It's hard. It's controlling the people and having them understand and not be upset with us makes it difficult. But for the most part, thus far, our customers have been fantastic. So thank you.
And people can't come into the store right now. You've put an actual kind of scoop window in your door.
Window, yep.
So you're very much outside, serving outside, and it's a to-go operation. Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you got into this, because I do know that in your very first opening year, you literally beat out Stewart Shops to win best vanilla ice cream in the world.
Yeah.
That's true, right? You've got to have this.
I have this extremely big paperweight here to prove it.
That's fantastic.
Too. No, this all started from my daughter's 5th grade school project. She had to study a state. Her state happened to be Vermont, and we had to make something to coincide with the state to share with the class. Initially we made maple candies, and I failed miserably. So we went to Ice Cream Next, Ben & Jerry's. Jeff had the cookbook. We followed the directions. It was edible, but it wasn't Ben & Jerry's. So I started to research them. And I found out that they took an ice cream course at Penn State called Ice Cream 101. Sure enough, it still exists. So shortly thereafter, in 2012, I went out and took the same course. Came back, started revamping all my recipes and saving money every chance I got, because we did this all out of pocket. And then we started our cart in 2016. We sold our first scoop of ice cream on the cart, mobile. And then after that, our second year, we were able to open up our brick and mortar on River Street in Troy.
Fantastic. All right, I'm actually going to jump over to Layla now, because you have such a different model. Now, Kim, who I'll go back to, she has this downtown River Street, you know, a lot of families walking through, young people living in Troy. You have opened a hatchet bar, an axe throwing bar in downtown Albany that you opened 3 days before the shutdown hit. This was going to be your new baby. This was your business plan. And then literally everybody had to close with the, you know, the restaurants, the bars had to close. And there you were, and you did this unbelievable pivot and started Woozy Moo ice cream.
Mm-hmm. How
did you go from hatchet throwing, bar owning to ice cream?
So for businesses to make it through the pandemic, you have to be innovative. Every day you have to be willing to either learn something new or adapt with change, because you never know what's gonna come the next day. So when my grand opening happened 3 days before the shutdown, then the shutdown came, and then with each week, you know, every day you tune into Governor Cuomo, and each week that passed, the reality that the closure would be for a very long time, you start to think about how you can work within the parameters that you have to work with. So during the shutdown, the businesses that could do business were the essential businesses. So those were the ones that could do takeout food. You know, the governor modified the liquor laws so that you could do takeout alcohol. But for me, that was never part of a business model. I don't have like a huge kitchen, but I do have room to make ice cream. So I've made ice cream at home for years. It was just sort of something I like to do because I love ice cream. So, you know, you hear these stories about people being home baking because they don't know what to do, so they're baking. I was home making ice cream and thinking about, what am I going to do with this cool space and this bar and the hatchet throwing and the lawn games? What am I going to do? And what am I going to do with all this alcohol that's sitting in my cooler, you know, in my backstock? So I started to play with the alcohol at home, just trying different recipes, trying recipes based on cocktails that I know that I like. And then I was having, you know, I drive some over to friends and family, try this ice cream, and people really loved it. They encouraged me to keep going with it. And then as I started to make more of it, I decided that this was something that I could do within the model that I had to work with, because it could be done on takeout. If the governor never let bars reopen, I could still do this. So I would say that Woozy Moo is supplemental to what I'm doing now. I think it's slowly becoming its own thing. So overall, this has allowed me to operate and will allow me to continue to operate should the governor decide, you know what, we need to close bars for another extended period of time.
Right. Now you're open for business. People can come in, they can, provided that they're wearing masks, they can come in, they can throw axes. In addition to ice cream, you do have a small food menu, the raclette grilled cheese menu, right?
Yes, I do. So I'm required to have food, as I do have an on-premises license. So I do have a food menu, but it's, you know, my space is sort of, it's not really a sit-down restaurant type space, because I have axe throwing cages and I have a lawn for lawn games. So people who come in here, they're allowed in. I stop everybody at the door. You know, you have to use the hand sanitizer. Your mask has to be on or you don't come in. You show me ID to get in. Everything is spaced out within the 6-foot requirements. While I do allow axe throwing, you may not take your mask off if you're standing up, including while throwing axes. So I try to run a pretty tight ship. I think I'm very lucky in that the customers that come here, whether they're new or returning, I find that if you're very honest with people and you say, listen, this is really important for health reasons, but it's also very important for you to understand that this is how businesses are going to survive. You have to cooperate. Otherwise, you know, we could be forced to shut down, and we certainly don't want that. And, you know, my professional background is an attorney. So I found that the more honest you are with people, the more appreciative they are of that, and the more they cooperate with you.
So that's a good segue, because since you are an attorney, some people have asked me about, well, boozy ice cream, who can eat it? A question. And in fact, Mercer's Dairy, which is in Boonsville, New York, you know, they started making wine ice cream back in around 2007 or 8. And then I know they had to get the law changed in terms of viewing this not as alcohol, but as food, or as in the same vein as confectionaries. And in fact, they even to this day, they're shipping to like 15 countries all over the world. And yet I think there's only a small portion of states in the United States that allow them to ship, because everybody has a different take on the legality. So you're running an over 21 bar, but you are selling boozy ice cream as one prong of it. And Kem is running a ice cream shop with, you know, really cute little cartoon logo. You know, they've got quite different vibes. So who can buy and eat boozy ice cream?
Is that a question for both of us or for me?
I'll ask you first, because you're the attorney, and maybe you can just say what Mercer's law accomplished.
So the guidance provided to me from the Liquor Authority in terms of the labeling guidelines and everything else require that your boozy ice cream, you have to be 21 and up to purchase it. So my policy here is consistent with that, with the guidance that they provided. Again, you do have to be 21 just to come into the space under normal circumstances. So I've continued that practice with the boozy ice cream because I want to be compliant with what the guidance is from the Liquor Authority.
Okay. Now, I know you've both collaborated at different times with either local distilleries, breweries, wineries. We're really fortunate to have so much in the area. But looking through each of your flavor profiles, I know they change all the time, every week. You're both making craft, small batch ice cream. So some of your flavors may stay because they're the most popular, but you both rotate your flavors. So I'll go to you, Kem. Tell me a little bit about some of these collaborations you've been doing with, you've been with Nine Pin, with Omegang, with a number of different places, right?
Well, I do want to add too, so my ice cream does have the alcohol in it. It has the liqueurs, ciders, wines. It's less than 0.5%. So anything between 0.5% and up to 5% is the max for these. That's where it's considered a cocktail or an alcoholic beverage. So that's why mine does not require the IDing, and it's friendly from 1 to 100. Because I know as soon as you go over that threshold, that's obviously the labeling. You can't just send out a plain container full of it. You have to have like Surgeon General warning. You have to have it plastered all over your store, IDing everyone. So originally this was going to be an ice cream parlor, but it just took on a whole new feel when we realized how busy we were. We couldn't handle a parlor and the ice cream. But we've been teaming up with Nine Pin before we were even really the Dutch Udder. You name it, you name the cider, we do a sorbet with it. We team up with Royal Meadery, we do a chocolate toasted coconut, Omegang, Brown's Brewing Company, Adirondack Winery. I mean, there's just so many. We try to do as much New York based everything as possible. Sometimes it just doesn't work out because the flavor profile or whatever it might be. I mean, even our dairy itself is New York dairy as well.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship we have with all these other businesses. You know, we tag along with them, they tag along with us. It's, you know, it's market drafting, as we like to call it.
Right.
So we help build each other.
And we are really fortunate in this area to have so many. I mean, obviously, we've seen the craft brewing industry blow up. And as you said, you and your husband are home brewers yourselves. Right. So, okay, well, and Layla, I know you have also collaborated with a number of local distilleries, but I see also some of your flavors are things like Guinness. You have your, what did I see? The Dublin Double Chocolate, which has Guinness and I think Jameson whiskey.
Yes. Yeah. So Woozy Moo started not that long ago, officially at the end of May. And in that time, I've worked on a collaboration with Ninepin. I've made 3 varieties with their ciders. And I've also worked on a collaboration with Capital Distillery. And I'm currently working on a collaboration with Chatham Brewery. So I'm excited about that one. So yeah, as I move along in this process, I really like to work with local businesses. I think in order for all of us to survive, we have to work together. So it's really important that I can help support other businesses likewise and drive traffic to them, and they drive traffic to me.
And I know you had a Patron sorbet or Patron apple, like a pineapple. You had that. You seem to be sold out of that, or maybe the flavor rotated off.
Well, I actually sold out of that one, and then I just rotated off the flavors. So I do make a new flavor of something every week, and I announce it every Monday on my Instagram page, The Yard Albany. And that just keeps it interesting. You know, nobody has anything good to look forward to on a Monday. Nobody wants Monday to come, but I found that Monday in particular is a nice day to introduce your new flavor because it gives something people to look forward to. Yeah, so I have a lot of fun with it. And it's a lot of fun to have people come in and be surprised that there is a thing called boozy ice cream. And you know, the 21 part, I agree with Kem, it absolutely comes in once you're over the half percentage. But for me, because this is always going to be an environment that's 21 and up, sure, this works with my business model.
Absolutely. And for people who come in and host events in your bar, axe throwing parties, it still cracks me up to phrase it like that, but you will make custom, or you can offer custom flavors geared to the scope of the group coming in. Like you mentioned to me when we spoke before, that you had a retirement party who came in and you made a flavor for them. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the retiree, I asked the party planner to ask her if she had a preferred liqueur or cocktail or something that she liked. And she said she was a fan of Kahlua and cream. And that's great because that's fairly easy to work with. So I made a vanilla based with a Kahlua caramel swirl. And so it was based off of a White Russian. And I called it Russian to Retirement because it was her retirement party. And she loved it. And it turned out that she was also Russian. So it fit perfect. It was sort of funny. And, you know, in the next couple of weeks, there's some smaller groups that are coming in for a birthday party to throw axes. And they have ordered a custom flavor for me for the birthday celebrant. So it's a lot of fun to do custom flavors because, you know, especially if you're creative, I enjoy it a lot.
Right.
It's almost like a challenge. And I've used sort of, when you're making ice cream, you can start like with a blank canvas and kind of go from there.
Well, you're both clearly very creative. I've read through all of your flavor descriptions. I'll have to tell people to go to your websites, your respective websites, for Woozy Moo and for the Dutch Udder. You really need to see the level of detail that goes into some of these. But Kem, let me ask you, because I know you also have made custom flavors for a long time, for weddings, for things like that. But tell us a little bit about the way you go about deciding what's going to work together, which flavors are going to work together. How do you put it together? And I know that you have a very strong sense of taste and smell. So clue us into what you do.
Well, I think anything can be an ice cream flavor if done correctly, honestly, but it depends on the flavor, what we're doing. So years ago, I was in a car accident, and I had a traumatic brain injury, which has now, I found the positive in it, I guess. I suffer from migraines currently, but it also has heightened my sense of smell and taste. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But I'm able to mimic flavors. So if I'm going to make a particular flavor, I've never had it before, I don't know what it is, I'll consume that item over and over and over until I understand it completely. Sometimes I do it that way. Sometimes it's just simply just trial and error until I get it where I want it. But there's really no, I don't know. I say I have luck is really what I say. I'm just very lucky. I have the Penn State. I have some courses at Cornell as well, but it's just.
So it just comes to you. I know I was like, maybe it just comes to her in a dream. She just says, these flavors work together.
Sometimes I wake up and text myself, or if I'm sleeping, I don't sleep often. I'm always, scouring the internet looking for something new, or what's the next trend to try to get ahead of it.
Sure.
But we've got probably well over 100 flavors altogether, because I get bored easily. Most ice cream shop owners think I'm nuts. They like to stick with their main, flavors, and that's it. That's awesome, but I would go nuts if I continued to make the same flavors over and over and over forever. So we change our flavors probably daily during the summertime. I always have another flavor. When one drops off, another one comes on. So yeah.
Goodness. Well, and you're making limited quantities, so presumably you just keep going, mixing it up, changing it from day to day, if not week to week. So Ron on Facebook has asked if you can share your recipe again. I think probably he means
I'm drinking?
What you're drinking. That's what I'm thinking.
So I'm drinking, in the can is a mojito from the Royal Madery in Del Mar. So This is a honey wine. You can taste the mint in here. It's fantastic. It's freshly picked. It's as if it was just picked. And then I just mixed it with our margarita sorbet. So it's a coconut lime based sorbet, and they just pair and complement each other very nicely. I don't currently have the margarita on. This is for my secret stash, but it does come in rotation.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I should talk a little bit here about some cocktails. I mean, obviously this is nothing new. It's new thinking about the alcohol being in the ice cream and the sorbets, but people have been mixing alcohol and ice cream since pretty much the 19th century. There's a few early references to using ice cream and alcohol. And then obviously there's a pretty famous cocktail book. One was in 1927, Judges Jr., I think, wrote it. I think it's called Here's How. And that's where I first had seen reference to the white cargo. And then Harry Craddock, who's super famous from the Savoy in London, he recommended in his book, if the ice cream and gin mixture was too thick, that you could add some wine to thin it. That cracks me up too, because I think you could just add some water to thin it, but I suppose if you're really trying to keep the alcohol content. But there's a lot of ways, especially in summer, or if you've had a big meal. I mean, you might finish a meal with an Amaro, a digestive poured over some ice cream. I brought a couple of things just to show. This is Death Wish coffee vodka, which I think is delicious, poured over vanilla ice cream, chocolate ice cream, coffee ice cream. And then for Amaros, I got this in Brooklyn, actually. This is Fort Haves Spirits. And this is absolutely delicious over ice cream, pretty much any flavor. So that makes it more of a float. But there are a few places in the area. I should just mention, if you're taking a drive up to Lake George and continuing on further north on your way to, I guess, North Creek, on the way to Gore Mountain, there is a restaurant called Basil Wicks. And they had seen us advertising this conversation, and they sent me their list of adult milkshakes, which I did just print this out, but I thought it was kind of fun. They're doing some classics, right? They're doing the grasshopper. That's pretty famous, and it seems to be having a new moment. It's trending again. And then they have pina colada. Well, very often if you're making pina colada, you might put in ice cream or sorbet. And a white Russian. I mean, adding ice cream to a white Russian. So we're pretty much, all on the same page with milkshakes and boozy sorbets. So if somebody has, say, allergies, or they can't have, they're lactose intolerant, and you're making sorbets, would you say that this is just as popular as well, I guess like the wine ice cream is still ice cream, but the sorbets, when you're adding alcohol to that, is it harder to make it into something that feels like a sorbet? I'm asking that because I usually feel like they end up like a granita. So I'll ask Layla first, I know, and then I'll ask Cam. Layla.
So just so that I understand your question is if it's more difficult to make a sorbet that isn't like a granita and sort of has the right consistency?
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's more difficult. First of all, it depends on, your sugar content, and, how much alcohol you're actually putting into it. And, the water and the ice crystals that can form. So I find that the sorbets that I make, to your point about people who have food allergies and all of that, I find personally that the sorbets are always popular, even with people who can do dairy. And I've also found, I introduced not that long ago an ice cream that was vegan friendly, made with coconut milk. And whether you're a vegan or not, the people who come in here, they get it regardless of food sensitivities or preferences, because they enjoy that like creaminess and the coconut milk and all of that. So I think it's always good to have options for people who have food allergies, but I also think it's good to have a variety for people who are curious or interested.
Right. Now, I should let you reply to that too, Cam.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, same thing pretty much. Sorbets, even the coconut milk, almond milk, cashew milk, those are all measured pretty much by Brooks. That's where you get, there's a sweet spot. You can either put too much sugar and it's going to be too soupy. You can put not enough, it's going to be rock hard. So there's a sweet spot with sugar and alcohol. There's always, alcohol has a lower freezing point than milk or anything else. So there's a happy medium that you need to make sure you hit. But I use a refractometer to measure that, which is, again, a device that I have from my homebrewing. So smooth. I like them smooth.
So would you say, I have a question that's just come here, but would you say that people could make their own at home, or would they need to have an ice cream maker pretty much to do it? Or like I say, if I'm doing a granita, something like that, I'm just putting it in the freezer and then roughing it up with a fork and putting it back in and giving it that icy texture. But would you say, either of you, that it can be, well, you're both making it at home as well before you became craft ice creamers. Is it something that people can do at home?
Well, yeah, you've got the old school ice cream machines with salt and the sugar, and
some of those,
ice, and you just spin it at home. That's how we started with our daughters. And then I upgraded to a 2-quart machine with a compressor you can get at home. I mean, even LL Bean, it carries like a ball that the kids can just toss around in it, and it mixes it up too. So it's not necessarily something that you need to have a commercial machine to make. Absolutely not. I mean, I had a guy have a recipe on my page in the beginning of all this in a Ziploc bag to use as a science experiment for the kids. So absolutely, you can do the stuff at home.
And I would agree. And some of the old school ice cream machines with the salt, the rock salt, and the ice, as described by Kim, some of them work much better than the machines. So
I wouldn't agree with that.
Huh?
I said I wouldn't agree with that.
Well, I would agree with it. I would agree with it to the extent that you can make a bigger quantity at once. So what I will say is that anybody can try this at home. I think, making ice cream is like a science. It's sort of like a little chemistry experiment because you have to get all of your proportions right. Sort of like, I never had the patience for baking, but for whatever reason, I have the patience for this. Maybe it's because I like the end product so much. So, I don't think you need a fancy ice cream maker. You just need, a little bit of time, a little bit of imagination, and some patience. And over time, the more you make it, I think the better you would get at it.
Well, and it's so true, especially right now. People are at home and they seem to be more willing to put into the time to experimenting, whether it's baking bread or making cookies or, whatever they're making at home. So maybe they'll try this too. I do want to mention, I was thinking if you can buy boozy ice cream and you're really indulging, and I have to say this, I know I'm not drinking much of it, but this cocktail.
I know, I'm the only one drinking.
You're the only one drinking. Well, it's really indulgent. It's rich. I heard somebody describe this, and I think it's hilarious, as Nigella Lawson sticking her head in the fridge at midnight. Trying, like, this would be her midnight snack, but then, what could be more decadent than perhaps slapping it between a couple of cookies? Now, I know we all know that cookies are this mad trending thing right now. And I know that, there are a lot of companies locally. There's Cookie Therapy Albany, there's Downtown Cookie Dough. These are from Upstate Cookie Shack. And all of them have these very large, they all look wildly different and they all rotate their flavors just as you do with your ice creams. We won't have time to get into a discussion about dairy regulation, who can put ice cream between their cookies. But I did just want to say, if you were buying those kinds of cookies at home, I feel like there's no reason that you couldn't put these around a big block of delicious boozy ice cream and just continue your slide. If you're already drinking your boozy ice cream, why not just keep adding the calories to it? So I did just want to give a shout out to those. I think, did I mention also there's Nocturnal Cookies? They deliver cookies and ice cream, at like 10 o'clock at night. So
I don't think they open until 10 o'clock at night.
I think you're right. I think they open at 10. They're like the Mild Wallies of ice cream. Cookies and ice cream.
Cookies, yes.
Cookies, yeah. So, okay, great. Now a couple of other questions. And we only have a few minutes left. I could keep chatting to you. What is the worst flavor idea you've ever come up with? And who wants to go first?
Worst flavor idea that I came up with, or that was suggested? I'll say one, the barbecue. I did a barbecue ice cream. And I got a lot of backlash on that. Like, how dare you turn that into an ice cream? Listen.
Was it a barbecue meat?
Barbecue. Yep. We did it for the pig out last year. So that's what we'll change up our flavors based on whatever events outside, whatever national holiday it is. We just continually add to our menu. But I did a pork ice cream, and we had our neighbor smoke it, and I ended up turning it into like a taffy and adding it into a barbecue sweet base, and it, oddly enough, it worked. If it didn't, I don't bring it. Never will come to scooping. And we made a cornbread sundae out of it. But I had like people come up to me like, how dare you? Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, you want a sample? And then, you know, once they had the sample and they tasted it and they're like, I don't understand how you did that, but it shouldn't taste good, but it does. So it's, again,
it makes total sense to me. And actually that fits. Of course, Layla has chocolate covered bacon. Do you put that into your ice cream as chips, or you just use it as a spear?
It depends on what they want. Some people just want it as a spear in their ice cream, and some people like it broken up. And some people just come in here just to buy the chocolate covered bacon. You know, if they might have had the ice cream and are in the mood for some bacon, so they'll come in here and buy that. So I give them the choice.
Very good. Okay. My final question to you both. I read just today in the New York Times, there was an interview with Ben and Jerry from Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream. And they said the single most polarizing issue and the only time they ever really fought was over the size of the chunks in the ice cream, and that marriages have failed over this issue. It's the most divisive issue. So do you feel as if there's any limit to the size that chunks should be? There's no right or wrong answer to this. Should they be small or bigger is better?
I can tell you, when I was when I first took a stab at mint chip julep, which is I wanted to make an ice cream based on the mint julep cocktail, but with some chocolate chips. I had a friend try it first, and he complained about the size of the chips. So I would agree about what Ben and Jerry's is saying to that extent. So I ended up changing it. Even like the smaller I made them, he's probably a bit more particular than most people, so that I found just going to sort of like a chocolate flake into the ice cream seems to work best. I don't get complaints. Well, I rarely get complaints, but I find that people really like that flake. I do think they're certainly too much of a chunk, but I also think it depends on what people are expecting. And that's often set by whatever you tell them the flavor is. I think people, like Kem said previously, that people have sort of preconceived notions about what something should be. Like, how dare you make a barbecue flavored ice cream, which I think sounds fabulous, but how dare you do that, because it goes against what their expectations are already set. So I think it depends on the flavor. I mean, I'm sure that there is certainly a size that is just too big.
And what about you?
Geez, I mean, you make the inclusion. This, honestly, when you talk about inclusions, it reminds me of Dan Berman. If you're watching, hi. Every time I added my cookie dough into my pink velvet, I'm like, there you go, Dan, there's your inclusions. Making sure I put enough in there. And that's really what it is with Ben & Jerry's too, is the amount of inclusions. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the size. I mean, you want to have it so if they're too large, you're getting less ice cream. And that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're doing. But you still want to have inclusion so that when you have a kitty-sized scoop, you're still getting the inclusion. When I first got my brand new machine, the next day I had a food or ice cream tour with Dan Berman, who was the head yelper, as I call him, and we hadn't met yet. So I was learning my brand new machine. I was completely sold out of ice cream and learning my brand new machine at the same time. And I was trying to do different techniques. So my inclusions weren't where they should have been. So now every time I'm adding an inclusion, I'm like throwing them in there. There you go, Dan. There.
All right, I have to wrap it up or we'll get cut off. But I want to thank you both so much for joining me today to chat. We'll be sending out some information with your information about your businesses and about the cookies and about the adult milkshakes and the cocktails I mentioned. I would remind people, please sign up, join us for our last in the series, which is going to be on August 11th. And I will be speaking to, I will have 3 guests actually, because we're going to be talking to 2 farmers and the CEO of Capital Roots. It's talking about access to food, growing your own food, pretty much the impact of COVID on the food system. But we will still be making a happy hour and they will be sharing some of their recipes as well using things that they grow. So thank you again, guys. I appreciate it. And cheers. I hope you get to finish your cocktail.
Cheers.
And I'll keep you down to your businesses. Everybody, check them out, both sides of the Hudson River, Albany and Troy. Enjoy your boozy ice cream.